At 1:23:45 on the 26th of April 1986, reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was devastated by the most catastrophic nuclear accident in history. The disaster released 400 times more radiation into the atmosphere than the atomic bombs used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. An exclusion zone of more than 2,600 square kilometres remained sealed off 33 years later. The release of the HBO series Chernobyl has sparked an all-new wave of intrigue and fascination amongst dark tourists, who are lured here by its promise of danger and morbid history. On the 33rd anniversary of the disaster, we visited the exclusion zone to experience this spine-chilling place for ourselves. The only way to legally enter the highly controlled exclusion zone is with a guide. We were picked up from the centre of Kiev early in the morning and began the 2-hour drive towards Chernobyl. There are several military checkpoints that have to be passed in order to enter. Here we had our documents checked and were each issued with a Geiger counter. Once inside, no t-shirts or shorts are allowed, and we had to keep covered up as much as possible. Travelling through the outskirts, we were able to explore some of the abandoned settlements that still litter the area. Over 350,000 people were forced to evacuate after the disaster. They have never been allowed to return. We were able to explore abandoned nurseries, gyms and theatres. Even a kids' summer camp nestled deep in the forest, now forgotten and overgrown. You can almost imagine what it would have been like to live here all those years ago. The trees here conceal another sinister relic of the Cold War, the Duga radar station. Once a closely guarded secret, this immense structure can be seen for miles around, rearing up through the mist on the horizon. Towering almost 500 feet high, it was once one of the most powerful military facilities in the Soviet Union, used to detect incoming nuclear missiles from the US. The massive array of huge turbines and twisting antennas is now in a sad state of decay, left to rot for over 3 decades in the radioactive winds of Chernobyl. We headed even deeper into the exclusion zone, until eventually, looming in the distance, we got our first glance of reactor number 4. The doomed plant is now encased in a huge steel sarcophagus, designed to contain its deadly radiation for the next 100 years. With some tours, you can actually enter the still functional parts of the plant. Under supervision from experienced guides, you can visit the control room, largely unchanged since 1986. Just across the river lies reactor number 5. The huge structure was only 70% completed. Despite the disaster unfolding next door, construction continued throughout the night as firefighters tackled the blaze. In 1989, construction was eventually cancelled and the site was abandoned. Everywhere you look, there are reminders of the disaster. As we travel back to Chernobyl town, we pass through a scrapyard filled with trucks, tanks and bulldozers that were used during the decontamination. This huge gripping claw was used to lift the graphite rods out of the destroyed plant. To this day, it remains one of the most radioactive objects in the whole city. As we got closer, the reading on our Geiger counters shot up to 300 microsieverts per hour, by far the highest reading of the whole trip. We were on a 2-day tour which included an overnight stay in the town of Chernobyl itself. This alone is an absolutely surreal experience. The town is now only home to the few plant workers and guards that still work here. Once a thriving atomic city and shining beacon of the Soviet nuclear program, Pripyat was hastily evacuated the day after the accident. Its 50,000 residents were told that they would be able to return in 3 days. They never did. The ghost town is a truly astonishing sight, unlike anywhere else on Earth. Its abandoned tower blocks, schools, nurseries, hotels, theatres and gyms lie silent. It has become a preserved relic of life behind the Iron Curtain of the Soviet Union. The residents of Pripyat had just a few hours to evacuate, taking only a few bare essentials with them. Remnants of their lives have been left here ever since. Hundreds of discarded gas masks litter the floor of a school canteen. Soviet propaganda continues to hang on classroom walls, and children's dolls are scattered around, left where their young owners dropped them over a quarter of a century ago. We even saw piles of homework strewn across school desks, dated just a few days before the accident. Our final stop in the city was the infamous Pripyat amusement park, undoubtedly one of the most eerie parts of the whole trip. The park was due to open just 4 days after the disaster. It never welcomed a single paying guest. The now infamous Ferris wheel has since become a haunting icon of the Chernobyl dystopia. Located in front of the Chernobyl fire station is a memorial to the liquidators, brave firefighters, soldiers, scientists and miners who risked their lives in the aftermath of the disaster. An estimated 600,000 people participated in the Chernobyl cleanup efforts. Many of them gave their life to complete the work they did here. Without them, the effects of the disaster would have been thousands of times worse. The plaque on the monument is inscribed, "To those who saved the world." Chernobyl has the power to be terrifying, yet absolutely fascinating in equal measure. Drenched in history and tragedy, it is unlike anywhere else on Earth. A trip here is an absolutely mind-blowing, eye-opening experience that should be at the very top of any dark tourist's bucket list.